Hello everyone. I'm Emma, and I'm excited to teach you today.
Hi everyone. I'm Jake, and I can't wait to learn with you.
Today, we're focusing on connectors. Do you know what connectors are, Jake?
Yeah, they connect sentences or ideas. Right?
Exactly. We'll learn about some important connectors like because, so, but, and although.
That sounds interesting. I've seen because used many times.
Great. Because helps explain reasons. For example, I like tea because it's warm.
I like coffee because it keeps me awake.
Perfect. Now, let's dig deeper into our connectors starting with but.
I understand, but shows contrast. Like, I like tea, but I prefer coffee.
Exactly. Now let's talk about although. It's also used for contrast. For instance, I drink coffee although I prefer tea.
So it's like saying I do something even if I like something else.
That's right. But remember, we can also use however to show contrast.
Could you give an example?
Sure. It's warm today. However, I still need a jacket.
So, however, is used to introduce a statement that contrasts with what was said before.
Yes. Great job. Now, let's move to our dialogue. Okay, Jake, let's show how we can use but, although, and because in a conversation.
Sure, I love to travel, but I don't have much time.
That's a good point. I travel a lot, although my job keeps me busy.
So, you find time to travel? How do you do that?
I plan my trips carefully, because I want to see new places.
Sounds smart. I should plan better too.
Yes, planning helps a lot. However, I sometimes change my plans if needed.
Like when? Can you give an example?
Sure. Last month, I wanted to visit London, but it rained.
Oh no. Did you change your plans?
Yes, I did. I stayed home instead, although I was disappointed.
That's understandable. I feel the same when plans don't go right.
Absolutely. So, what do you prefer to do in your free time?
I enjoy reading books. I read a lot, but I also watch movies.
That sounds nice. I prefer reading, although I watch shows too.
Do you read fiction or nonfiction?
Mostly fiction, because I love stories.
I get that. I read fiction as well, but I enjoy documentaries too.
That's cool. Maybe you can recommend a good documentary sometime.
Of course. I'd love to share it with you.
Fantastic. Now, let's explain these connectors a bit more. First, because shows reason. For example, I'm learning English because it's useful.
It's clear. And what about but?
But shows contrast. Like, I like chocolate, but I prefer vanilla.
I see. And although.
Although is used to show contrast as well, like, although it's cold, I will go outside.
Got it. And what about however?
However, introduces a statement that contrasts what we just said. For instance, I like tea, however, I drink coffee often.
These are very helpful. Can we practice more?
Of course. Now let's use our vocabulary words in a conversation. Despite the rainy weather, I still enjoy going to the park.
That's great. I prefer indoor activities. However, I do like visiting parks.
I understand. I like parks, even though I often get wet.
Why do you go out in the rain?
Because I enjoy the fresh air, even when it rains.
I see. I prefer reading at home because it's warm inside.
That makes sense. I like to read outside when it's sunny, whereas I stay inside when it rains.
I'd like to try reading outside someday.
Yes. Make sure to choose a nice spot.
Absolutely. However, I need to find a good book first.
I can recommend some books. I read a lot.
That's perfect. So, what do you usually read?
I love fantasy, despite it being a bit long sometimes.
I prefer thrillers because they are exciting.
Thrillers are fun. They keep you on the edge of your seat.
Exactly. However, sometimes they can be scary.
Very true. Now let's look at the vocabulary for today. Our first word is, however. You can say, I wanted to go out, however, it was raining.
That's a good way to contrast.
Another example could be, I like pizza, however, I'm on a diet.
Interesting. What's next?
Next is, therefore. For example, I was tired, therefore, I went to bed early.
Right. It shows a result.
Despite is another one. You can say, despite the heat, I went for a walk.
So, this one talks about doing something regardless of something else.
Exactly. Then we have, whereas. For example, I like cats, whereas he likes dogs.
That shows a difference.
Lastly, let's talk about, even though. You can say, even though it's cold, I go for a run.
That's a good way to show perseverance.
Absolutely. Now, let's review what we have learned. First question. How do we use, but?
To contrast two ideas, like, I like summer, but I prefer winter.
Great. Next question. Can you use, however, in a sentence?
Of course. I wanted to play football, however, it was too late.
Well done. Now answer this. What does despite mean?
It means, regardless of something, like, despite being tired, I finished my work.
Nice job. Final question. How do we use, whereas?
It shows a contrast between two things. Like, I ride a bike, whereas my brother drives.
Perfect. You nailed it. Now let's wrap up.
This was so fun. I enjoyed learning today.
I'm glad. Next lesson, we'll dive into questions and how to ask for information.
That sounds great. I can't wait.